Welcome back to the Willadelphia show, everybody! The 76ers made a big trade earlier today leading up to the NBA trade deadline. What were Daryl Morey's motives behind it all? Plus, another coaching debacle for the Eagles, this time on the defensive side of things. Then, Will introduces an all-new segment. Great to see all of you again here on the Willadelphia show. I know what you're asking yourself, who is this guy with the fresh haircut? Yeah, you better believe it's still Willie B, baby. I know I'm looking good, but that's not what you're here to talk about. That's not what you're here to discuss. You're here to talk about the Jared McCain trade. We got a whole lot to cover, man, because this was a puzzling one. The Philadelphia 76ers have traded guard and former first-round pick Jared McCain to the reigning champion Oklahoma City Thunder for a 2026 first-round pick via the Houston Rockets and 3 second-round picks over the course of 2027 and 2028. Sixers fans all over social media are wondering whether general manager Daryl Morey made this move because they just wanted to get under the luxury tax threshold or because he is planning something bigger, aka a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. This trade is so puzzling for a lot of reasons. I mean, for one thing, McCain was the 76ers' first-round pick in just last year's draft. They took him with the 16th overall pick out of Duke, and he impressed me in limited minutes as a rookie before getting injured and shut down for the rest of last season, and last year was a dumpster fire, so nobody really cared. But in this season, I was super excited to see what he would look like in the 76ers' backcourt next to guys like Tyrese Maxey, Quentin Grimes, and rookie phenom VJ Edgecombe. And then, he gets sidelined early on with the thumb injury, and then he struggles to produce when he comes back. He was only averaging 6.6 points, 2 rebounds, and 1.7 assists in just under 17 minutes a game, shooting about 38.5% from the field. So, like I said, this is really just weird for the 76ers because no one knows what this means. Some people seem to think that McCain was just the odd man out in the 76ers backcourt, and they saw an opportunity to use him to get out from under the luxury tax threshold. Others think that Morey used McCain to acquire all of those picks because the Sixers are gearing up to go after the league's most coveted deadline prize, Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, if you're a frequent listener to the show, you understand that I am not a fan of this trade. This is not something that I would pull the trigger on. I think it's a mistake that will set the 76ers back even further in their retooling process. My main reasoning for not wanting him are the price it would likely cost the Sixers, as well as the logistics around potentially re-signing him. I think that there is no world where the Bucks do not ask the Sixers for a package that includes rookie phenom VJ Edgecombe, and I have already fallen so deeply in love with him that he is firmly on an untouchable list in my opinion. So based off of that alone, I wouldn't do it. But even if you take that out of it, I still think that it's pretty misguided. The Sixers have won 4 in a row and currently sit at 29-21 on the season. But if you've watched this team for even a couple games this year, you know that this is not a team that is one big piece away from being a championship contender. You just can't convince me otherwise. I'm sorry. Even if the piece in question is one of this generation's most dominant players, I don't think it does enough to even make us the favorites in the East over teams like Boston, Cleveland, and even New York. Best case scenario, trading for Giannis pushes the 76ers deeper into a playoff run that they still have no chance of winning anyways. We get eliminated by a better team in the Eastern Conference Finals instead of the semis. I think that's the only difference a Giannis trade makes, in my opinion. And on top of it, it's not like Maxey, Embiid, or Paul George would be getting sent to the Bucks in return, which means we would probably have the highest payroll of any team in basketball if we were to sign him to an extension after trading for him. Or we don't extend him, so we mortgage the future of the franchise for a rental that more than likely won't even be worth it to win a championship. Trading for Giannis only gives the 76ers higher expectations that they can fall flat on, and I just can't go through that again. I just can't. I'm sorry. I finally admitted that this is a fun enough team to watch every night. I finally admitted that they deserve to have my eyeballs on them on a nightly basis. But thinking that they are anything more than a fun team in the middle of a retool is foolish and will only lead to more heartbreak for this city and these fans. If Morey was just trying to add some draft picks to get under the luxury tax with the McCain trade, then I don't hate it. I really don't. He had just proven to be the odd man out in a backcourt that is loaded with talent. But if this is an attempt to make a heavy-handed push to get Giannis, the only outcome is pain, in my opinion. And before we move on, I just wanted to touch on the Paul George situation because this is one of, if not the worst signing that I can think of in recent Philadelphia sports memory. For those of you that aren't aware, 76ers forward Paul George was suspended 25 games by the NBA this past weekend for violating the league's anti-drug policy. In a statement released to the media, George took full responsibility, saying that he took an improper medication which was related to his mental health. Listen, I am and always have been a big advocate for mental health. If you need to talk to someone, you need to reach out and get the help that you need. Everybody is behind you. I think if you disagree with that, you're a horrible human being. But what really pisses me off is that we have no idea if he is even telling the truth. I don't know Paul George, and I don't trust Paul George, quite frankly. The NBA does not require information about the drugs players test positive for to be released to the public. So we will likely never know if Paul George is telling the truth and that this really was just a mix-up in medication, or if he was actually taking some kind of performance enhancer. And listen, I'm not accusing Paul George of lying. But I am saying it seems fishy that the NBA would have a mental health medication on their banned substance list. And it also seems fishy that he wouldn't name the medication that he took in the statement that he released to the media. Regardless of what you think about the situation, this is a bad look for Paul George. All the guy does is miss games for one reason or another. And we finally had him back on the court healthy, being a productive part of the team. And then this happens, and we once again get the rug pulled out from underneath us. It's not quite Andrew Bynum, but we are rapidly approaching that kind of territory. He'll be eligible to return from his suspension with just 10 games remaining in the regular season. And if he plays all of those games, which I doubt that he will, then he will have missed 86 out of a potential 164 games since signing with the 76ers. This guy gets paid $52 million a season over the course of his contract, and he's played 4 more games than one full season. But at least he's losing $11 million because of the suspension, right, guys? Oh, yeah, now he's only making $41 million a season to play in 37 games. That'll show him. Good on you. The Paul George signing has been a failure of the highest degree, and I would not blame the Sixers for looking to eat his contract after this season. We move on. Next, we have more coaching drama surrounding the Eagles, this time on the defensive side of the ball. After hiring offensive coordinator Sean Mannion and passing game coordinator Josh Grizzard, respectively, the Eagles got another scare when a report came out that Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio had been considering retirement this offseason. Of course, this news came right as the NFL coaching carousel was coming to a close, so people were starting to wonder, if Fangio retires, how much does this have to do with Sirianni and the Eagles' top brass? Honestly, I think that's blowing it out of proportion a little bit, like immediately jumping to this being a Sirianni issue. And I'm not saying that that's not a possibility, because Sirianni is just that much of a troublemaker. But I really just don't see that being the case. Would it be a nightmare for the Eagles to replace Fangio at this point in the offseason? Absolutely it would. I mean, this is one of the greatest defensive minds in NFL history, so replacing him, period, would lead to an exhaustive search. But doing it at this point in the offseason, particularly, where all the best candidates have already joined coaching staffs, elsewhere, it would be even more of a nightmare. But the idea that this is somehow related to Sirianni and the drama surrounding the Eagles coaching staff, it just seems a little ridiculous to me. I'm going to be honest. I mean, Fangio won a Super Bowl with Sirianni just a couple of years ago, has a great relationship with the young core of defensive players that the Eagles have developed over the past couple of seasons. So I highly doubt that Vic would just walk away from that over, some drama that's happening on the side of the ball that least concerns him. If he were to walk away, I think it would be for one reason and one reason only. His age. Vic Fangio is 67 years old. He's been in the NFL as a coach in some capacity since 1984, which means he will be entering his 42nd NFL season at the start of 2026. He made it clear when he signed here that he was looking to end his football career in Philadelphia for the team that he grew up cheering for. I think that, people are just kind of forgetting about that. I think we knew coming in that this wasn't a super, super long-term thing. All indications point to Fangio staying on as the Eagles defensive coordinator in 2026. But based on this discourse, I wouldn't count on him being here in 2027. I know one thing is certain. No matter what the future holds, the Eagles do not win a Super Bowl without that guy. We should cherish the remaining time that we have with this defensive genius while we still can. And to finish off the show, we're going to introduce a new segment that I am very excited about. It's called Ask Willy B. Fans will submit questions to Will with the knowledge in mind that Will could pick their question as a topic to cover on a future episode of the Willadelphia show. That's what you're watching right now. How many questions Will answers will be determined by the amount of time left in the show, but it'll usually be between 1 and 3. We're going to do 3 today because we have the time for it. So today's first question comes from Logan in South Philadelphia. Thanks for submitting a question, Logan. Logan asks, Willie B, is it time to panic on Cam Jurgens? We just gave him a ton of money, and he was maybe the worst center in the league last season. What do you think? Big shout out to Logan in South Philly for submitting a question here to the Willadelphia show. I'll be honest, I think it's entirely too early to panic on the Eagles' offensive line as a whole, but Jurgens specifically. Don't get me wrong, he played really poorly last season, and actually it baffles me that he was named to a Pro Bowl whatsoever with how poor his performance was throughout the season at any point. And I know anybody makes the Pro Bowl these days, but still, he was that bad last season. But I don't know about you guys, I check the injury reports every day throughout the regular season, and I don't know if there was an offensive player who was on there more often than Jurgens was, and if there was somebody, it was maybe Landon Dickerson, but I think it's pretty close between the two of them. I think that the offensive line as a whole was just really beat up last season. And I think that, mixed with teams being hyper aware of the need to stop Saquon fresh off the best single-season rushing performance in NFL history, led to the dip that the Eagles experienced in run production. But Jurgens and Dickerson were both so banged up this past season. Obviously, we missed Lane for a while there, too, on the back 9 of the season. And Steen, I just think, kind of struggled overall, quite frankly. You know, we saw a lot of Matt Pryor, Brett Toth, and Fred Johnson. A lot more of those guys than I think anybody was hoping to see coming in. The one consistent was Jordan Mailata at left tackle. You know, so even though he didn't really deserve it, we're technically talking about a guy who has made the last 2 Pro Bowls at the center position. And I genuinely believe that when healthy, Cam Jurgens is one of, if not the best run-blocking center in the National Football League. So, yeah, I say let's give him another year before we make our final decision on Cam Jurgens. Next up on Ask Willy B, we have Will J. from Charleston, South Carolina. We're big fans of the name Will on this show, on the Willadelphia show here, if you guys couldn't tell. Will J. wants to ask Willy B, what is the ceiling on this Crawford kid, and do you think we will have the worst outfield in the National League East? Big shout out to Will J. in Charleston, South Carolina for submitting a question. Well, for starters, I think the ceiling for Justin Crawford, if I had to compare it to someone, would probably be his dad, Carl Crawford. But if you're asking me for a comparison in today's game, maybe a Luis Arise type, although I think he's much faster and, quite frankly, he's better at fielding his position. Luis Arise is a 3-time batting champion, so I think that's a lot of pressure to put on a 22-year-old kid who's never seen a pitch in the show before. But I do think that is the type of player profile that we are looking at best case scenario with this guy. He finished last season in AAA. In 112 games, he hit .334 with 7 home runs and 47 RBIs. He also stole 46 bags. So, and I see a lot of people out there who are worried about his lefty-righty splits because, you know, he's a left-handed hitter and Tomper loves the platoon outfielder situation. But he hit .337 against left-handed pitching. That's really good in any level for a lefty to be hitting, same-side pitching that well. So I'm not saying the kid is going to immediately come up here and be prime Carl Crawford and be a contender for the batting title, but I do think that, if he can get reps and time in the outfield, I do think he could be a very productive outfielder for the Phillies as a rookie, and I could see him continuing to get better as his career develops. Now, are we going to have the worst outfield in the National League East? It depends on what you're really asking there. Defensively, no, I don't think so. I think the Mets will have us beat there. Juan Soto is basically a statue in right field. Luis Robert has won a Gold Glove in the past, but he's been very spotty out in center field. They just traded for him. Tyrone Taylor's pretty good. He looks like he's going to play in left field for them, but I think just off of Soto and Robert alone over the past 2 years, I think the Phillies will be better defensively. Offensively, it kind of depends on the production that we get. If we're getting the best version of Adolis Garcia, then I have a hard time seeing the Marlins and Nationals outfields be better than us offensively. And especially, back to Crawford, if he can be a productive piece out of the gate as well, then all we really have to worry about is which version of Brandon Marsh we're getting. And if that's all you have to worry about, I think we're in a pretty good spot. But those are a lot of ifs I just rattled off there. It's a lot of if this happens and if that happens. So, if only there was a guy like Harrison Bader from last year that the Phillies could have gone out and re-signed to add to this outfield. It's a shame he wasn't available. Dave. All right, and we'll do one more here to wrap up the show. Alex S. from State College, Pennsylvania. Big shout out to Alex S. for submitting a question. Alex S. wants to ask Willie B, what are the chances that the Eagles still look to move on from A.J. Brown post-June 1st after bringing in 2 new passing specialist coaches? Well, big shout out once again to Alex S. out there in State College for submitting a question. I think that the Eagles are increasingly unlikely to trade A.J. Brown. I think it's, I think both of these moves, both of these hires kind of indicate that they're not looking to move A.J. Brown whatsoever. I think they've remained steady every time that they've been asked about whether or not he's available via trade. The Eagles just aren't in. A.J. Brown is a damn good football player, and the Eagles are not in the business of trading players who are just that damn good. And they especially aren't in the business of trading players that are that good that cost as much as it would to move A.J. Brown either pre or post June 1st. If they were to trade him before June 1st, the $63.5 million dead cap hit would be the 4th single largest dead cap hit in NFL history for one player. And if they choose to move him after June 1st, it's only a $43.5 million dead cap hit. So good on you there. I really don't see the Eagles getting anything in return in a trade for A.J. Brown that's going to make giving up that much money in dead cap space worth it. And I think that the Eagles bringing in 2 new offensive specialists who are past first offense guys to work with A.J. Brown and the rest of this offense, I think that's indicative of the fact that they are going to try to work through this with A.J. Brown. It's less expensive to try to just keep him happy than it is to get rid of him. It really is. And I think the Eagles know that, and I think the Eagles are going to really, really do everything in their power to make sure that he is a Philadelphia Eagle come the start of 2026. Hopefully, working with Mannion and Grizzard can get AJ to buy back into the offense fully in 2026. Because if not, the Eagles are headed for an expensive split with their star receiver. This concludes our first ever Ask Willy B segment here on the Willadelphia Show, and that is also gonna do it for this episode. Thank you to everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Willadelphia Show. How do you feel about the Jared McCain trade? Do you think Daryl Morey was just trying to get under the tax threshold, or do you think he's planning something bigger? And do you trust that Vic Fangio will be the Eagles' defensive coordinator for the foreseeable future? Let us know all that and more down in the comments. Like and subscribe to Willadelphia Sports on YouTube and follow us on all social medias. I'm out of here. Go Birds and Kabooyah.